The Brooklyn rooftop shimmered under the soft glow of a late summer evening. For Maya Sterling, this wasn't just a patch of soil. It was her sanctuary, her canvas, her escape from the relentless hum of the city. Lush basil brushed against her denim-clad legs as she moved through the rows, humming a tune as bright as the sunflowers that stood sentinel on the northern edge. This was her little slice of New York, and in this urban gardening haven, the world felt right. But tonight, the world felt off. A chill snaked down Maya's spine, and it wasn't just the evening breeze whipping off the East River. It started with the empty wine bottle, a relic from last night's painting session, inexplicably lying on its side amongst the rosemary bushes. Careless, she chided herself, but then she noticed something far more unsettling: the ravaged tomato plants. Not just any tomatoes, mind you. These were her prized cherry tomatoes, a vibrant cascade of red and yellow jewels that she'd painstakingly nurtured from tiny seeds. Each one plump, sun-ripened, and bursting with a sweetness that belied their urban origins. Now, several of the vines were stripped bare, the tender leaves rustling in what suddenly felt like a mocking whisper. A wave of disbelief washed over Maya. Could it be squirrels? Pigeons? She'd battled them before, employing everything from netting to shiny reflectors. But this was different. This felt targeted. A slow burn of indignation started to simmer in her chest. "Okay," she muttered to herself, her voice barely audible above the city's ever-present drone. "Okay, this is officially an unsolved mystery." The lamplight cast long, dancing shadows across the rooftop, turning familiar objects into menacing figures. Maya scanned the perimeter, her artistic eye now sharpened by suspicion. Had someone broken through the security gate downstairs? Was it a disgruntled neighbor, jealous of her thrilling story of urban success? A seed catalog lay open on her potting table, its pages fluttering in the breeze. Her gaze landed on a photo of the Carolina Reaper, its vibrant red skin a deceptive mask for the fiery inferno within. An idea, bold and audacious, sparked in her mind. This wasn't just about tomatoes anymore. It was about protecting her passion, reclaiming her space, and maybe, just maybe, teaching someone a very spicy lesson. This was the start of a journey of discovery, one that would lead her down a rabbit hole of HOA intrigue, neighborhood secrets, and a whole lot of horticultural mayhem. And Maya, armed with her art supplies and a growing sense of purpose, was ready to dive in head first. The following morning, the sunlight did little to thaw Maya's simmering suspicion. She stood on the rooftop, nursing a lukewarm coffee, replaying the previous night's discoveries in her head. The ravaged tomato plants, the unsettling emptiness. It all pointed to one person, Agnes Periwinkle. Now, Agnes wasn't a monster. Not exactly. She was, in fact, a pillar of the Hawthorne Heights community. President of the HOA for 7 years running, a feat that bordered on the miraculous. Agnes lived in the penthouse apartment directly across the courtyard from Maya's, and from their respective perches, they often exchanged neighborly waves, a silent acknowledgement of their shared urban oasis. Maya had even complimented Agnes on her flower boxes. Meticulously arranged petunias, each bloom a perfect shade of lavender, creating a cascading symphony of color. "You have such a green thumb, Agnes," she'd said, genuinely admiring the woman's dedication. Agnes had simply smiled, a tight, almost strained expression. "Order is essential, Maya. In all things, that was Agnes in a nutshell. Order, control. Order, control." The Hawthorne Heights HOA wasn't just an organization. It was her personal fiefdom. And Agnes ruled it with an iron fist, albeit one clad in a gardening glove. Maya had witnessed it firsthand. The infamous letter Mrs. Rodriguez received for having a non-approved shade of beige on her balcony furniture. The meticulously detailed notice issued to Mr. Henderson for letting his ivy grow an inch too high above the agreed-upon trellis line. The endless stream of passive-aggressive emails regarding community aesthetic and responsible gardening practices. But Agnes wasn't simply a stickler for the rules. She genuinely believed she was doing what was best for everyone. She saw herself as a guardian, protecting Hawthorne Heights from the creeping chaos of the city. The flower boxes, the perfectly manicured lawns, the uniform appearance, it was all a testament to her unwavering commitment to a shared vision. The thought that Agnes, with her seemingly benevolent intentions, could be the tomato thief felt absurd, but Maya couldn't shake the feeling. It was in the way Agnes always lingered a moment too long, when admiring Maya's rooftop garden, the subtle critique in her voice, when discussing the unconventional arrangement of her herbs. Perhaps, Maya thought, Agnes wasn't motivated by malice, but by a misguided sense of improvement. Maybe, in her quest for ultimate order, Agnes had decided that Maya's tomatoes simply didn't fit the aesthetic. A thrilling story was unfolding, and Maya found herself playing the lead character of what seemed to be an unsolved mystery. Regardless, Maya knew that she needed to get to the bottom of this, so she started brainstorming with Jerry as to how they can stop this foe. She took out a map and started brainstorming plans to capture the mysterious tomato thief, knowing full well this was the start of a long and treacherous journey. The seed catalog snapped shut. The image of the Carolina Reaper burned into Maya's mind. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about asserting her independence, reclaiming her artistic space, and sending a crystal-clear message. Mess with Maya Sterling, and you'll get burned. As she sat in her apartment, the glow of her laptop illuminating her face, Maya was completely engrossed. She researched every type of pepper possible, taking into account all the factors involved with growing them. A smirk crept across Maya's face. The scorpion pepper gambit had officially begun. She spent the afternoon transforming her apartment into a makeshift laboratory. Seed packets scattered across the kitchen table, gardening gloves lay discarded near the windowsill, and the air crackled with the scent of potting soil and determination. Maya, fueled by lukewarm coffee and a righteous indignation, was on a mission. First came the careful selection. After an endless search with Jerry, the two stumble upon the scorpion pepper. Jerry warns Maya that this pepper is a bad idea, but she disregards it. She wanted to get the person that was tormenting her no matter what. She envisioned it, the unsuspecting thief, drawn in by the juicy allure of the cherry tomatoes, reaching for their prize. But instead of a burst of sweet delight, they would encounter an inferno. A fiery explosion that would send them scrambling for the nearest glass of milk, and a newfound respect for the power of urban gardening. The research was intense. Maya devoured articles on pepper cultivation, studying soil pH levels, optimal watering schedules, and the delicate art of pollination. She even watched YouTube videos of daredevils attempting to consume the world's hottest peppers, their faces contorted in expressions of sheer agony. It was inspirational. "It's all about the capsaicin," Jerry explained over a Zoom call, his voice echoing slightly from his cluttered study. "That's the compound that creates the heat, and scorpion peppers, they're packing serious capsaicin power." Maya grinned. "Exactly. Thrilling story, isn't it?" The next step was acquisition. Finding scorpion pepper seeds wasn't exactly easy. They aren't exactly sold everywhere. To get the seeds, they were forced to search the black markets of the internet. And when all hope seemed to be lost, Jerry stumbled upon an auction house that specialized in finding exotic vegetables. Now with the seeds, she needed to figure out a way to grow these flowers, which forced her to build a new place to store the plants, in case someone came snooping around. "This isn't just about tomatoes, Maya," she told her reflection in the window, her voice barely a whisper. "This is about taking control. This is about sending a message. This is about showing Agnes Periwinkle that you can't mess with an artist and get away with it." Maya wasn't just planting peppers. She was planting seeds of rebellion, cultivating a journey of discovery that would transform her from victim to avenger. And as the sun dipped below the Brooklyn skyline, casting long shadows across her rooftop garden, Maya knew that the stage was set for a showdown. A spicy showdown that would forever change the fate of Hawthorne Heights. The clock tower in the distance chimed midnight, its echoing bells marking the official start of Operation Nightshade. The rooftop was cloaked in shadows, illuminated only by a sliver of moon peeking through the towering buildings. Maya, dressed in all black and armed with a headlamp, felt like she was starring in her own unsolved mystery thriller. Beside her, Jerry the Professor McMillan, clad in a floral print Hawaiian shirt, and a pair of gardening gloves that looked like they belonged in a surgical theater, hummed a Johnny tune as he mixed a secret concoction of soil amendments. His expertise in botany was both impressive and slightly terrifying. He was the yin to Maya's yang, and together, they were the perfect team. "Remember," Jerry whispered, his voice barely audible above the city's low rumble, "the key is camouflage. We want these little devils to blend seamlessly with the tomatoes. Jerry has a history of being a bit all over the place, He starts working and then abruptly stops. But even with this handicap, he would continue to push forward to see Maya succeed. With painstaking precision, they began planting the scorpion pepper seedlings. Jerry, using a set of miniature trowels, created perfectly sized holes amongst the existing tomato plants. Maya, her artistic eye ever vigilant, carefully positioned each seedling, ensuring that its leaves mirrored those of its unsuspecting neighbors. As they worked, Jerry peppered Maya with botanical trivia. "Did you know," he said, adjusting his glasses, "that peppers are technically fruits, not vegetables? It's a common misconception, rooted in, well, never mind. The point is they're masters of disguise." The thrilling story here was starting to show. Even if these two were not friends before, it seemed clear that their relationship was flourishing. Once the planting was complete, they moved on to the security system. Maya had purchased a state-of-the-art motion-activated camera, capable of recording in complete darkness. With Jerry's help, she strategically positioned it amongst the sunflowers, its lens trained on the tomato plants. "Think of it as a high-tech scarecrow," Jerry said, adjusting the camera's angle. "Except instead of scaring away birds, it's capturing evidence of horticultural crime." As they stepped back to admire their handiwork, Maya couldn't help but feel a surge of nervous energy. They were walking a thin line here, a dangerous dance between justice and vigilance. But she was determined to see it through. The morning dew settled heavy. Maya could feel Jerry gazing down at her, almost as if he were making sure that Maya didn't do something that would put both of them at risk. Maya checked the lens on her phone. Everything was set. Now, all they had to do was wait. "Operation Nightshade is complete," Maya whispered, a thrill coursing through her veins. This was now a journey of discovery, but it would prove to be a fun one. Days turned into nights, and the rooftop camera remained stubbornly inactive. Maya checked the footage obsessively, her anxiety growing with each passing hour. Was Agnes onto her? Had she somehow discovered their plan? Or, worse yet, had she simply lost interest in Maya's tomatoes? Just when she was about to lose hope, the camera sprang to life. It was late, the moon casting a ghostly glow over the Brooklyn skyline. A figure, silhouetted against the building across the way, scaled the security gate with surprising agility. It wasn't Agnes. A teenager. Maya zoomed in on her phone, her heart pounding in her chest. The teen, a skinny kid with a backwards baseball cap and a nervous energy, crept towards the tomato plants. He reached for a plump, red cherry tomato, popped it into his mouth, and then all hell broke loose. His eyes widened, his face flushed crimson, and he let out a strangled yelp that echoed across the courtyard. He frantically pawed at his mouth, his body contorting in a bizarre dance of pain and desperation. He flailed at the air, spitting and sputtering, his youthful bravado replaced by pure, unadulterated panic. Unsolved mystery solved, Maya muttered to herself, a surge of satisfaction mixing with a twinge of guilt. It wasn't Agnes, but someone had paid the price for horticultural larceny. The teen stumbled around the rooftop, desperately searching for something, anything, to relieve the inferno raging in his mouth. His eyes landed on the garden hose, coiled neatly near the edge. He grabbed it, yanking it with such force that the nozzle flew off, showering him in a torrent of ice-cold water. The scene descended into utter chaos. Water sprayed everywhere, soaking the tomato plants, the sunflowers, and the unfortunate teen, who was now screaming incoherently as he flailed about like a fish out of water. Maya watched the thrilling story unfold on her phone, a mixture of amusement and horror washing over her. She should probably intervene, call the police, do something responsible. But she couldn't tear her eyes away from the spectacle. This wasn't just justice. It was slapstick comedy gold. After what seemed like an eternity, the teen finally managed to gain control of the hose, directing the icy stream into his burning mouth. As the immediate agony subsided, a look of dawning realization spread across his face. He glared at the security camera, his eyes narrowed with suspicion and a hint of grudging respect. The journey of discovery had taken a very spicy turn, and Maya knew, with a growing sense of dread, that this was only the beginning. The relative calm that followed the teen's rooftop meltdown was short-lived. Just as Maya started to think she might have gotten away with her vigilante gardening scheme, the other shoe dropped. It arrived in the form of a thick, official-looking envelope, delivered directly to her door by a stern-faced courier. The return address: the Hawthorne Heights Homeowners Association. Inside, Maya found a meticulously typed list of violations, each one more absurd than the last. Unauthorized modification of common rooftop area, cultivation of non-approved plant species, disturbance of the peace, and the pièce de résistance, creating a hazardous environment. The fine for each violation, $500. Agnes Periwinkle wasn't just angry, she was weaponizing the HOA. Maya crumpled the letter in her fist, a slow burn of indignation spreading through her veins. This wasn't about tomatoes anymore. This was about control. Agnes was using her position to bully and intimidate her, to silence her creativity, to crush her spirit. This whole unsolved mystery was escalating. The thrilling story that was just beginning now seems as though it was coming to a close. The violations were just the beginning. Over the next few days, Maya found herself bombarded with increasingly petty complaints. A notice appeared on her door claiming her sunflowers were blocking a neighbor's view. She received a scathing email criticizing the unharmonious color of her watering can. And, most disturbingly, she started noticing Agnes watching her. Her eyes narrowed with a mixture of suspicion and triumph. Jerry, ever the eccentric confidant, tried to offer words of encouragement, but even his boundless optimism seemed to waver. "She's playing dirty, Maya," he said, stroking his beard thoughtfully. "We need to fight back, but we need to be smart about it." The weight of the HOA's relentless assault started to take its toll. Maya, who had always prided herself on her independence and resilience, found herself second-guessing every decision, questioning her every move. Was she really creating a hazardous environment? Was she being selfish? Was she just causing trouble? The doubts gnawed at her, threatening to extinguish the fiery spirit that had fueled her rebellion. But then she thought of the teen, writhing in agony on her rooftop. She thought of the other residents of Hawthorne Heights, silently chafing under Agnes' tyrannical rule, and she knew that she couldn't back down. It wasn't about the tomatoes, or the peppers, or even about Agnes Periwinkle. It was about something bigger. It was about protecting the right to express oneself, to create beauty, to live freely, even in a community governed by rules and regulations. "This isn't over, Agnes," Maya muttered to herself, staring out at the city skyline. "This is just getting started." And she knew with a newfound resolve that she was ready to fight back, not just for herself, but for the soul of Hawthorne Heights. The journey of discovery has reached a crucial point. The siege by the Hawthorne Heights HOA had left Maya feeling battered and bruised. The endless stream of violations, the constant scrutiny, and the creeping sense of isolation were starting to wear her down. She needed help, but she wasn't sure where to turn. Jerry was a loyal friend, but his eccentricities often made him more of a liability than an asset. As for the other residents of Hawthorne Heights, they were mostly polite, but they also seemed wary of attracting Agnes's attention. Then, a lifeline appeared in the most unexpected of places: Beatrice Albright. Beatrice was a longtime member of the HOA board, a seemingly meek and unassuming woman who rarely spoke during meetings and always deferred to Agnes's authority. Maya had always assumed that Beatrice was simply another one of Agnes' loyal foot soldiers. "I heard about what happened," Beatrice said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The peppers and the violations." Maya braced herself for criticism. "I suppose you're here to tell me I'm disrupting the peace, ruining the community aesthetic, and generally wreaking havoc on Hawthorne Heights," she said, her voice laced with sarcasm. Beatrice shook her head, her eyes darting nervously towards Agnes' penthouse window. "No, not at all. I actually think what you did was courageous." Maya stared at her in disbelief. "Courageous? You're on the HOA board, Beatrice. You're on the HOA board, Beatrice. You're supposed to be upholding the rules, not applauding acts of horticultural terrorism." Beatrice sighed, a deep, world-weary sound that belied her gentle demeanor. "The rules are important, Maya, but sometimes the rules are used to control people, to stifle creativity, to suppress individuality." A seed of understanding began to sprout in Maya's mind. Perhaps Beatrice wasn't the obedient drone she appeared to be. Perhaps, beneath her quiet exterior, there was a flicker of rebellion, a yearning for something more. "I've been on the board for 15 years, Beatrice continued, her voice gaining strength. And I've watched Agnes. Well, she's always been passionate about the rules. But lately, it's become obsessive. She uses the HOA to impose her will on everyone, and no one dares to challenge her. Maya listened intently, sensing an opportunity. Why not? She asked. You're on the board. You have a voice. Beatrice hesitated, her gaze dropping to the ground. It's not that simple, Maya. Agnes has a way of persuading people. She knows how to manipulate the system, how to use the rules to her advantage. And besides, I'm afraid of her. Maya felt a surge of sympathy for Beatrice. It was clear that she was trapped, living in fear of Agnes's power. But Maya also sensed a spark of hope, a glimmer of defiance that she could ignite. What if, Maya said, her voice low and conspiratorial. What if we worked together? What if we found a way to challenge Agnes from within the HOA? You know the rules better than anyone. You know how she operates. You could be our inside source. Beatrice's eyes widened. I don't know, Maya. It's too risky. If Agnes found out, then we won't let her find out, Maya said, her voice firm. We'll be careful, we'll be smart, and we'll do it together. You're not alone, Beatrice, and I'm not going to let Agnes bully either of us. A tentative smile spread across Beatrice's face. I don't know what to say, Maya. This is crazy. Crazy good, Maya said, winking. Think of it as a thrilling story that's just unfolding. A journey of discovery, not only for myself, but for all of Hawthorne Heights. Then Jerry chimed in through the phone speaker. I am in. I can help you if you are going to challenge the tyrannical leader. With a newfound determination, Maya now knew that she had the tools necessary to fight this new battle. She knew that working together, the tide could be turned and the oppressive forces of the HOA would be pushed back. Even if this unsolved mystery was only just beginning, she had the support of Beatrice and Jerry, who would support her to her last breath. As if that was not enough, she found even more friends. The journey will not be tough, but it will be an easy one. With Beatrice now a valuable ally on the inside, Maya knew she needed a new strategy to push back against Agnes's increasingly absurd regulations. She couldn't keep fighting a defensive battle. She needed to go on the offensive, to create something so outrageous, so undeniably her, that Agnes would be forced to acknowledge her presence. That's when Jerry, during one of their brainstorming sessions fueled by Earl Grey tea and stale biscotti, had a stroke of genius. What if, he said, his eyes gleaming with mischievous delight. What if we crossbred the scorpion peppers? Maya stared at him blankly. Crossbred them? With what? And why? Jerry launched into a detailed explanation of plant genetics, pollination techniques, and the potential for creating entirely new varieties of peppers with unique and unpredictable characteristics. It was, as always, fascinating and slightly overwhelming. The thrilling story we have been talking about is about to reach a new height. We can create the next big thing, a new pepper, and then we can sell it, Jerry proclaimed as he did a science dance. Imagine, Jerry continued, his voice building with enthusiasm. A pepper that's not only incredibly hot, but also boasts a complex flavor profile, a vibrant color, and who knows what else. We could call it the Hawthorne Heights Inferno. Maya's initial skepticism began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of excitement. Creating a new pepper, a symbol of their rebellion against Agnes's tyranny, was exactly the kind of bold, creative statement she was looking for. She took his advice to the heart and the two started coming up with designs for this new plant. But it is no easy feat. Growing and then merging plants to become one is incredibly tough and tedious. We would need to spend countless hours perfecting this, Jerry stated. The challenge, of course, was the actual crossbreeding. Neither Maya nor Jerry had any experience in plant genetics, but with Jerry's encyclopedic knowledge of botany and Maya's artistic eye for detail, they were confident they could figure it out. With renewed purpose, Maya and Jerry transformed her rooftop garden into a horticultural laboratory. They read countless articles on cross-pollination, watched YouTube tutorials on grafting techniques, and experimented with different combinations of peppers. They are now on a new journey of discovery. Beatrice, meanwhile, provided them with valuable intel from within the HOA. She learned that Agnes was planning to propose a new set of gardening regulations that would effectively ban all non-approved plant species, including Maya's beloved tomatoes. The clock was ticking, but with Jerry's knowledge and wisdom, they were able to figure it all out. As the sun was going down, he stated, "We are one step closer to making this a reality." It was now or never. They had to create their Hawthorne Heights inferno, and they had to do it fast. They started to get to work. The Hawthorne Heights Community Center had never felt so charged. Every chair was filled, the air thick with anticipation and simmering resentment. The HOA meeting was about to begin, and Maya knew that this was it, the moment of truth. Agnes Periwinkle sat at the head of the table, her face a mask of icy composure. But Maya, thanks to Beatrice's inside information, knew that Agnes was far from confident. The news of a potential challenge to her authority had rattled her, and she was desperate to regain control. As the meeting droned on through the usual formalities, budget reports, landscaping updates, and complaints about misplaced recycling bins, Maya felt her anxiety rising. She clutched the evidence in her bag. The security camera footage, the photos of Agnes snooping around her rooftop garden, and of course, the Hawthorne Heights Inferno peppers, carefully sliced and arranged on a small plate. Finally, it was Maya's turn to speak. She stood, her voice trembling slightly, and addressed the room. "I'm here today to address some concerns about the conduct of our HOA president, Agnes Periwinkle." A hush fell over the room. Agnes' eyes narrowed, but she remained silent. Maya played the security camera footage on a large projector screen. The room gasped as Agnes's image, caught in the act of plucking tomatoes from Maya's garden, filled the screen. Then, she showed the other pictures with the team, further painting Agnes as an unlawful leader. Agnes, her face flushed crimson, sputtered, This is a fabrication. This footage has been doctored. I am innocent, but the damage was done." The residents of Hawthorne Heights, long weary of Agnes's overbearing rule, began to murmur amongst themselves, their voices filled with disbelief and growing anger. Beatrice, emboldened by Maya's courage, stood and spoke. "I can confirm that this footage is authentic," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I have personally witnessed Agnes trespassing in Maya's garden on several occasions." The room erupted in chaos. Accusations flew, arguments broke out, and the meeting descended into utter pandemonium. Agnes, her authority crumbling around her, looked desperate, frantic. "I didn't do anything wrong," Agnes was crying out. Agnes was crying out. The thrilling story had gone out of control, and no one knew what to do. Then, in a move that surprised everyone, including Maya, Agnes stood up and addressed the room. "Very well," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "If you believe I have committed some egregious offense, then I am willing to prove my innocence." She turned to Maya, a glint of desperation in her eyes. "I understand that you have some peppers," she said, gesturing towards the plate on the table. "I am willing to eat one, right here, right now, to prove that I have nothing to fear." Maya hesitated. This was her chance to completely humiliate Agnes, to expose her for the fraud she was. But something about the woman's desperation gave her pause. She did not want to do this. But then, Agnes reached for a slice of pepper, her hand shaking. Before Maya could stop her, she popped it into her mouth. The effect was instantaneous. Agnes's face turned scarlet. Her eyes widened in horror, and she let out a strangled gasp. She clutched at her throat, sputtering and choking, her body contorting in a grotesque parody of her former self. The unsolved mystery had taken a dangerous turn. She thought it was a tomato, but it had become something much more dangerous. The Periwinkle apocalypse had begun. The Hawthorne Heights Community Center descended into pandemonium. Agnes, consumed by the fiery agony of the Hawthorne Heights Inferno pepper, was a spectacle of sputtering, tear-streaked chaos. Some residents gasped in horror. Others snickered with barely concealed delight, while still others rushed to her aid with glasses of water and frantic words of comfort. Maya, watching the scene unfold, felt a strange mix of emotions: satisfaction, guilt, and a lingering sense of unease. She had achieved her goal. Agnes' reign of terror was officially over. But the price had been higher than she anticipated. Beatrice, her face pale with shock, hurried to Agnes' side, offering a comforting hand. "Are you all right, Agnes? Can I get you anything?" Agnes, still struggling to speak, could only shake her head, her eyes filled with a mixture of pain and humiliation. Her body shook intensely, and the tears flowed down from her eyes. She ran out. With Agnes gone, the meeting quickly dissolved into a chaotic mess of recriminations and accusations. The HOA board members, suddenly leaderless and directionless, bickered amongst themselves, each vying for control. The other members were speechless. Jerry, ever the pragmatist, steered Maya towards the exit. "Let's get out of here," he said, his voice low. "The vultures are circling." Outside, the night air felt cool and refreshing. Maya took a deep breath, trying to clear her head. She had won, but it didn't feel like a victory. She had ruined the life of one of their own. "What do we do now?" she asked Jerry, her voice barely a whisper. "This thrilling story has led us to dark days." Jerry shook his head. "I don't know, Maya, but I think things are going to be very different around here now." As for Agnes, all anyone knew was that she had booked a flight to go back and see her family, and no one knew when she was coming back. The era of the tyranny flower seemed to be coming to a close, but the unsolved mystery of how to help Hawthorne to rise again was yet to begin. The weeks that followed Agnes' fiery departure were unlike anything Hawthorne Heights had ever experienced. The HOA, rudderless and divided, was effectively paralyzed. The oppressive regulations, once enforced with such zeal, were quietly forgotten, and in their place, something remarkable began to bloom. Residents, emboldened by Maya's rebellion and Agnes's spectacular downfall, started to express their individuality in ways they never had before. Balconies, once adorned with only approved shades of beige, burst forth with vibrant colors, mismatched furniture, and quirky decorations. Lawns, once meticulously manicured, sprouted vegetable gardens, wildflower patches, and whimsical sculptures. Hawthorne Heights, once a cookie-cutter community of conformity, was transforming into a vibrant tapestry of self-expression. Maya, watching the transformation unfold from her rooftop garden, felt a sense of profound satisfaction. She hadn't intended to start a revolution, but she had inadvertently unleashed a wave of creativity and freedom that was sweeping through the neighborhood. The thrilling story had reached the part that many people wanted to see: the end and the peace. Jerry, of course, was in his element. He spent his days advising residents on gardening techniques, sharing his encyclopedic knowledge of botany, and generally encouraging everyone to embrace their inner eccentric. He was like a mad gardening professor. The unsolved mystery for him was how he had helped this community transform from a dictatorship to a democracy, and he was proud. Beatrice, meanwhile, emerged as a new leader within the HOA. She rallied the remaining board members, advocating for a more relaxed and inclusive approach to community governance. She even proposed a new set of guidelines that celebrated diversity and encouraged individual expression. "The most important thing is that we are all happy. If we are all happy, then we can create something wonderful," Beatrice proclaimed as she gathered the new leaders together to set a new set of rules. She was no longer a pushover, but she was a warrior for what was right. However, the journey has not been all peaceful. Although most of the people felt happy, some of the people, namely Agnes' followers, did not feel like this was the right move. They felt like she ruined a safe and reliable way of life. It was because of this that there was chaos, and this new plan would not last. Even Agnes, in her own way, had contributed to the transformation. Her draconian rule had inadvertently created a pent-up desire for freedom that was now exploding in a riot of color and creativity. Of course, not everyone was thrilled with the change. Some residents complained about the unruly gardens, the garish balconies, and the lack of community standards, but their voices were drowned out by the overwhelming chorus of approval. Maya's rooftop garden, once a target of Agnes's scorn, became a symbol of the neighborhood's newfound spirit. The cherry tomatoes, now thriving under the watchful eye of the Hawthorne Heights inferno peppers, were a testament to the power of resilience, creativity, and a little bit of spicy rebellion. After a while, she was approached by a lawyer. "You have been charged with causing a danger for others, and the city is looking for you." Maya didn't know what to do. This journey of discovery had hit a major bump in the road. The scent of blooming wisteria couldn't mask the unease that settled over Hawthorne Heights. The vibrant gardens, once symbols of newfound freedom, now felt like battle lines drawn in the soil. The news had spread like wildfire. Maya Sterling was being sued, not by Agnes, though everyone expected that, but by the city. The lawsuit alleged that Maya had acted irresponsibly, cultivating a dangerous weapon in her rooftop garden and intentionally causing harm to a minor. The teen who had sampled the scorpion pepper was now suffering from long-term health complications, and his parents were seeking damages. The thrilling story that was brewing was now starting to crumble, and the reality of it all was setting in. The news sent shockwaves through the community. Some residents, those who had initially cheered Maya's rebellion, now saw her as a reckless vigilante, endangering their children and jeopardizing the peace of Hawthorne Heights. "She went too far," Mrs. Henderson whispered to her neighbor, shaking her head in dismay. "We all wanted to get rid of Agnes, but this is just wrong. She should have known better than to do this." The HOA, still reeling from Agnes's departure and grappling with its newfound freedom, was thrown into further turmoil. A special meeting was called, and the atmosphere was tense and divided. Beatrice, struggling to maintain order, pleaded with the residents to remain calm. "We need to remember what we are all working towards," she asked. But it was no use. They hated the flowers that she had created. Jerry, ever the loyal friend, leapt to Maya's defense. "This is ridiculous," he exclaimed, his voice booming across the room. "Maya didn't intend to hurt anyone. It was an accident, a silly prank that went wrong. She doesn't deserve this." The unsolved mystery was still unsolved, but the damage was done. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and many residents were now questioning Maya's motives and methods. She was now being asked by lawyers whether it was her intent to help or to cause harm. It was the community that had once helped her that was now taking her down, and the irony wasn't lost on Maya. Then came the ultimate betrayal. A local newspaper published an exposé on Maya's past, revealing a history of minor rebellions and run-ins with authority. She'd gotten a parking ticket. She'd been fined for having Christmas lights up too long in January. But were these things a precursor to the chaos that she was allegedly planning? No one knew. But it sure painted a picture that wasn't pretty. They were now painting her as a threat to public safety, a reckless artist who had turned her rooftop garden into a weapon of mass destruction. The comments section exploded with hateful messages, and Maya's phone buzzed nonstop with angry calls and threats. The phone call stated, "You are going to jail. You will be sorry that you did this to my son. We will destroy everything you have ever built." The weight of the community's condemnation was crushing. Maya felt isolated, betrayed, and utterly alone. The journey was now getting tougher than ever before, and the freedom that had been promised before was slipping away. She felt lost and broken and hopeless. The courtroom buzzed with a nervous energy that could rival the tension before a Broadway opening. Hawthorne Heights had turned out in force, packing the gallery to witness Maya's fate. On one side sat the parents of the teen, their faces etched with anger and grief. On the other, a mix of supporters and detractors, all anxiously awaiting the judge's verdict. Maya sat at the defendant's table, her heart pounding in her chest. The trial had been a grueling ordeal, a relentless barrage of accusations and character assassinations. She had been forced to relive every detail of her actions, every intention, every regret. It felt as though her life was flashing before her eyes. The once thrilling story that was there was no longer, and this now feels like a horror story. But through it all, she had stood firm, maintaining her innocence, insisting that she never intended to harm anyone. And to her surprise, she was joined and protected by Jerry and Beatrice. They were the people that knew what was up from the beginning, and they weren't going to stop until the very end. The prosecution painted a picture of a reckless vigilante, a dangerous artist who had turned her rooftop garden into a weapon. The defense, led by a sharp, compassionate lawyer named Ms. Ramirez, a neighbor and fan of her garden, argued that Maya was simply a creative individual defending her property from theft, and that the incident was a tragic accident. As the judge entered the courtroom, a hush fell over the room. Judge Thompson was a veteran. She listened intently as Ms. Ramirez argued the truth will reveal what we are fighting for. The judge listened and looked at the evidence, and determined that this was no malice intent. It was two sides warring. The plaintiff is to be released of all charges. The courthouse then erupted. Even though many were against her, it was still a victory to be won. She had won back her life. She was innocent. The sun dipped below the Brooklyn skyline, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, as Maya surveyed her rooftop garden. It had been 6 months since the trial. 6 months since the Hawthorne Heights inferno had set the neighborhood ablaze, and 6 months since life had irrevocably changed. The city had removed the charges, and a weight had been lifted off of her back, allowing her to think freely once more. She was in charge now. She reached for her phone and dialed up her friends. She knew that the path to success was just around the corner. She knew she would lead her community to be free. The journey had been fraught with danger and peril, and she was glad to have come out with something worthwhile. She took the lessons to the heart and never forgot what it was like to fight back, even with so many people watching. Maya ran her fingers through the leaves of a tomato plant, now laden with ripe, juicy fruit. The Hawthorne Heights inferno peppers, still thriving, stood sentinel nearby, their fiery red skins a constant reminder of the chaos they had unleashed. But something else had bloomed in the aftermath, a newfound sense of community. Neighbors, once divided by rules and regulations, were now united by a shared experience, a shared sense of freedom, and a shared appreciation for the power of individual expression. The unsolved mystery had turned into a thrilling story about courage and strength. The balcony had been redone by the same people who wanted to have her sent to prison. They had apologized for their actions, and the community got a makeover as well. Hawthorne Heights had become known all across the city for its creativity. It was a model to others and demonstrated how to move forward despite the problems that were encountered. What did Maya do with her life? She became a consultant for those who had to deal with tyrannical HOAs, and they were able to get on with their lives without issue. She saved lives and protected others from going through what she went through. As Maya looked over her domain, she was at peace. The journey of discovery had turned out to be quite the ride. Maya's story, from garden squabbles to community revolution, is a potent reminder that standing up for what you believe in can have transformative effects, even when the path is fraught with challenges. One key takeaway is the importance of embracing individuality. Don't let restrictive rules or societal pressures stifle your creativity or self-expression. Your unique perspective is valuable. Another lesson lies in the power of unexpected alliances. Reach out to others, even those you least expect, as shared struggles often forge the strongest bonds. Perhaps most importantly, Maya's tale highlights resilience in the face of adversity. Setbacks and negative opinions will come, and it is up to you to be resilient and to keep pushing forward. Finally, reflect on the intent behind your actions. Even when seeking justice, consider the potential for unintended consequences and strive to act with integrity. Embrace what makes you special. Seek support from unexpected sources. Be resilient to adversity, and always check your motives. A great recipe for a great person.